Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. At Villery's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villery's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villery's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, talk a lot about the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, the Tulane Green Wave. If we have some time, we're even going to touch on the Pelicans and some high school football as well. Joining us tonight on the program, always a great panel. These guys, I love when they're on the show. Les East of CrescentCitySports.com and so much more. And Garland Gillen of Fox 8 Sports. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for coming down. And always like to start off letting the folks know where they can find you guys, whether it's with television, radio, internet. Give us the whole rundown for you, Les.
Thanks, Eric. As you mentioned, I'm writing for CrescentCitySports.com, also writing for NOLA.com. Saturday Down South, which is a website affiliated with USA Today and covering a lot of LSU stuff for them. So staying busy with a lot of .coms.
Well, and again, which is the way it is now, right?
Absolutely.
It's the way it is, no doubt. Garland, welcome back. I know you got a busy week coming up, but you guys are just knocking it out the park with all your shows. I was telling Sean Vazan on the radio show this afternoon that I've got them all DVR'd, and so I mean, every single show that you guys do, and it seems like every single week y'all just kick it up a notch. Every one, congratulations.
Yeah, we have 3 hours of programming a week, just sports related. You got the Jim Henderson Black and Gold Review on Monday, Game Plan on Thursday, Fox 8 Football Friday on Friday. Saints Tailgate, which is our pregame show preceding the Saints game at 10 a.m. And then we wrap it all up at on Sunday night at the final play at 10:30. So it's a ton of content. We got a big sports staff to take care of it. And Fox8Live.com, we push our app heavy now, Final Play app. It's a ton of Saints information, a lot of Henderson on there. So we are all in on football season, and Saints play Carolina on Sunday, and then they go to London. We'll be there with them. Juan Kincaid, our ace photog, Edwin Good, and I will be in London all next week. We went there in 08. Juan and I both did in 08. So they won in 08.
Yes, they did.
So there you go. We'll see. Maybe win this week, win next week, and get back to 500.
And talk about, really, I think it was one of the more unique blogs that we have here in the city, your blog.
Yeah, football, food, focus on restaurants, soccer, and football. I keep the soccer a little short because I know the city's not a biggest soccer fan, but the World Cup is on Fox 8 next summer, so we've been going kind of all in on soccer at our station, and Juan's a huge soccer proponent. So I do that about once every 2 weeks there, and I know everybody can write restaurant reviews. I focus on more of like, a little thing here and there, like maybe Parkway people, the tourists, go to Parkway, they go right to the to the line.
Right.
Well, you can order at the bar and get there like 10 minutes quicker with your food.
Well, only New Orleanians know that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I sometimes have to tell people, because the tourists just read the tourist magazines.
Yes,
so.
no doubt. Well, it's a great blog. I
Thank you,
enjoy
sir.
it. I really do. Guys, I wish we had. It's funny. 3 weeks ago on this program, I talked about the optimism that was flowing through the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana with LSU, Tulane, and the Saints. And I've got to throw Nichols in there. Well, they're still optimistic on the Bayou right now with Nichols, but man, things have just kind of gone a little bit down south when it comes to the Saints. And 36-20, they lose to New England last week. They're 0-2 now, and I got to tell you right now, what really surprised me about this was, I mean, truly, New England limped into the Dome. They were, if you want to talk about a crippled team, they were crippled. I mean, so many injuries across the board. They had a wide receiver that was really limping throughout the game. Gronk tears them apart, and then of course he gets injured. You know, they're basically throwing the backs. They've got some of the defensive stars that are out as well. They got a problem on the offensive line. But the Saints couldn't do anything against them. You know, the 20 points, a lot of that is garbage yards and garbage points that make it look better on the scoreboard. It was really never a game. You know, just really, really frustrating for a lot of Saints fans. And, you know, those in the media as well that kind of bought into this team was going to take the next step this year after their preseason performance. You know, and look, we all know that preseason's fool's gold, but there were some indicators that said that this was going to be a better team. It's not a better team. You know, at least at this point in the season, they're definitely not a better team.
No, they're not. And, you know, we talked on your radio show and on this show before the season about how they had to be better on defense. We thought they had a chance to be better on defense because they brought in so many new players. Obviously, that's not all fitting together just right yet. Now, maybe it will, maybe they'll come around, but there has been nothing encouraging these first two games defensively. And we talked about earlier how the first month was going to be so challenging because they've gotten off to bad starts recently, 3 of the first 4 on the road, going to London, and then the Patriots having extra time to prepare for this game compared to the Saints. So there are a lot of things working against them. But if we had said they were going to go 0-2, I don't know that people would have been that surprised. Right. But the way they have gone 0-2 has been so discouraging. The defense has played as bad as it could possibly play, and the offense hasn't been up to speed. They miss Willie Snead. He'll be back after one more game. They're beat up on the offensive line. So they have a chance to get better when they get these guys back, but just like the last 3 years, it may be too late if they get themselves in another 0-3 or 0-4 hole.
Garland, what can you add? I mean, are you as surprised as most that the way that they're playing, the margin of defeat that really is there? Not with when you look at the numbers and the final score, like I said, a lot of garbage points and garbage yards in there. They got soundly beat the first 2 weeks. Yeah,
the cornerback spot was my biggest concern going into the season, especially with Delvin Breaux being out 6, 7, 8 weeks. That was a major concern. That's what. And you got Ken Crawley, Devontae Harris. Sterling Moore. I mean, Marshawn Lattimore was a rookie. So that's why I was really worried about that core. And sure enough, the first 2 weeks, Sam Bradford looks like a first-round pick, which he was, but he also looks like a Hall of Famer in the first week. And we found out later on that he was actually got injured in that game and still did well because he didn't play the next week against the Steelers. So week 1, Bradford looked fantastic. Week 2, Tom Brady. You'd have thought that the Patriots destroyed the Chiefs the week before because they looked so smooth in week 2. Sure. Just tore them apart. I just don't know when it's going to get better in the secondary. I really don't. Marshawn Lattimore's in concussion protocol right now. He's probably not going to play this week. Sterling Moore with a pectoral muscle might be back. He was limited today in practice, so that's one guy coming back. But Ken Crawley's missed the first 2 games. He's been healthy and active. Are you going to bring back Arthur Malek, bring him up from the practice squad there from Bonneville? Played at Memphis in college. He's never played in the league. Yeah. It's very concerning. I just don't know if it can get any better with Cam Newton playing against them on Sunday.
You know, guys, what really just, I guess, blows my mind on all of this is, how can you go through off-season workouts? You go through a mini camp, training camp, and then not know your assignments. When you look at the installations that have been put in, not understand the installations, because this has happened. This has been. I mean, football's a year-round game now for the most part. They get a little bit of time off, but after that, it's into the classroom, into the weight room, getting ready, preparing for the season. You get into the regular season. You know, if you're a wide receiver, not understanding your the route tree. I mean, where you have to be in this timing offense. I mean, you can see it across the board of just the bust and missed assignments, and it really is mind-blowing.
Well, on defense, one of the things they emphasized in free agency was they brought in guys to eliminate that.
Yes.
A.J. Klein's a very smart player. Manti Te'o's a very smart player. Those guys played linebacker where you make a lot of the calls. That was supposed to solve a lot of the problems. Now, we've only played 2 games. Maybe the things will get better.
Sure.
But you're right. With all the time they had in the offseason to work on that, you wouldn't expect there to be so many blown coverages, so many mental mistakes these first 2 weeks. And I saw a stat today that ESPN put out. This is amazing. There have been 16 passes thrown by the Saints' opponents so far that were 15 or more yards down the field. 14 of those were completed, 3 of them for touchdowns. So they've had more touchdown passes down the field than incompletions.
It's amazing.
Using that 15-yard.
Well, quarterbacks are completing the ball at an 80% clip, which is, again, that's little or no resistance right now.
I think Sean Payton era will be remembered for winning the Super Bowl in 2009, but also be remembered for the poor hires he made as defensive coordinator. Greg Williams did win a Super Bowl for him, but also the broad and bounty scandal. Gary Gibbs, Rob Ryan, Dennis Allen. It just hadn't worked out for Dennis Allen's defense, and there's no excuses this time around. He's had an entire offseason to deal with these guys. This is probably going to be the end. If they lose this week, I don't think they can recover, and then Drew Brees is gone at the end of this season. So Saints fans, I know they left the Dome early. We did a story where they were at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Rob Masson from Fox 8 was out there. They all came out. They spend a ton of money. I feel for season ticket holders. They spend a lot of money.
I'm one.
And they're not getting the product. But I will tell you this. If they go 1-3, 0-4, you might want to go to the Dome because this is going to be in. This is the last time you're going to see Drew Brees, and this might be the last time you're going to see Sean Payton.
Let's stay with that for a moment because, again, I mentioned last week on this program on the radio show that I get the vibe that even though Brees has been really, really positive this week, that the 7 and 9s are really starting to wear on him. And, when you look at this situation, I don't know if they go to the playoffs and turn this thing around, if they can still afford Brees. $18 million in dead money. Another $25 to $30 million is what you're going to pay him. I mean, you're going to have, $40 million plus wrapped up in Drew Brees. And, it's pretty amazing right now when you look at how much of the cap he will be absorbed. The question is, for even a quarterback who has not shown that he's aging, can you make that kind of commitment going forward? And can you build a team when you got one player that could be making between $40 and $50 million?
Well, no, you can't. It's impossible. And this is the same conversation we had last year. And that, can they afford? That window's closing. Is there a way they can put enough pieces around him to make another run at it? And we're seeing absolutely no indication that the pieces around him are anywhere close to being adequate for them to get in the playoffs and make a run. And like you said, you can't commit that kind of money to him if the defense still needs to be built up as much as we thought it needed to be built up a year ago. So they're just spinning their wheels at this point. And at what point does Drew say, I only have a couple of more years, or 3 or 4, or whatever? He may outlast most quarterbacks, but at what point does he say, I can't take this losing anymore. I have to go somewhere where I have a chance to win. And certainly if Sean Payton's not there, that makes it a lot easier, I think, for Drew to move on.
Right. And if Payton is there, he's never been able to develop a quarterback since he's been in New Orleans. He's never won with anybody else under center other than Drew Brees in New Orleans. We don't know if that offense can work without a Drew Brees under center here in New Orleans. So there's a lot of question marks from the money that's going to be pledged to him if he stays, if he decides to stay, whether Payton stays or goes, and then what do you do if ultimately Brees does go and Payton is still here?
I think the only way, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think the only way you're going to get your season ticket holders to re-up for next year is if you blow this thing up. You say we're doing a rebirth. Peyton's gone, Brees is gone. Bring a new coach in and hire and get a first-round quarterback. Right now, I think there's 3 of them. You got Josh Rosen at UCLA, Sam Darnold USC, and Sean Fazandi's favorites, Mason Rudolph at Oklahoma State. I've watched 2 of his games so far. He has 2 local guys that he throws the ball to, and Tyron Johnson, who went to St. Aug, and J.J. McCleskey's son, Jalen, who went to St. Paul's. I really like Mason Rudolph's game. Might as well blow it up. And I think that's the way you're going to keep the fans here is say we're going to redo this whole thing, clean it all out, get all the dead money out. If you told the Saints fans right now that after the season's over, they're not going to make the playoffs, if they're going to blow this up in 3 or 4 years, they can make the playoffs again and maybe have a shot down the line to do some damage, I think they would buy into that.
Well, I agree with you. I think at this point, the bloom's off the rose with Sean Payton. I think that the Super Bowl, I think people are grateful for the Super Bowl win, but I think it's way in the rearview mirror.
8 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean, it's time to move on for that.
There was a time when he was untouchable, where it was blasphemy to say anything about Sean Payton, but now it's not the case. I think the fan base has waned, and look, because of the bad decisions. Look, it really goes back to me to, right after they won the Super Bowl. I talked about it a little bit this week on my radio show. The fact that he was kind of basking in the glow of the Super Bowl win, and all walking the red carpet and everything else that went there. Then there was Bountygate. You had the suspension. You had the situation, obviously, that he had in his own personal life. We can go way back to Vikingate. He seemed to lose focus, and when the guy who's making the final decisions, as he has made in this organization, on draft choice, free agency, the direction they're going to go, when this guy's not 100% focused, you're going to falter. And this team now, over years and years of again, mismanagement of the cap, etc., has started to falter. And it's all kind of come home to roost with, 4 of the last 5 years, 7 and 9. With a Hall of Fame quarterback. Mm-hmm. What would they be without him?
Well,
you would chase Daniel.
They would have a lot of very high first-round picks if they didn't have Drew Brees. And this is, it's really hard to be a successful head coach in the NFL. Not many people can do it and do it for any period of time. So you have to be reluctant before you make a move with somebody like Sean Payton, who's proven he can do it at a very high level. But he hasn't done it for several years now. And this offseason, he made changes on the staff. He got rid of some people that were very close to him.
Yes.
There was a sense of urgency, like now is the time we have to get this fixed. And it doesn't look like it's fixed. Again, it's only 2 games.
Sure.
Let's see how it plays out. But if this continues the way it started and it's more of the same like the last 3 years, I don't know what you look at to suggest things would be better next year or the year after or the year after that. And your suggestion about blowing it up, that may be the only way to go if this thing doesn't turn dramatically sometime soon.
I got to ask you both then. Who makes the call? Who makes the call?
Who
makes that call?
You know what could save the Saints? Last year, if the Rams would have wanted to hire Sean Payton, Peter King brought this up on The Herd on Monday. Sean Payton was one of the front runners, and then McVay just blew them away, 31-year-old wonder kid. Maybe this offseason, they're going to fire the Colts head coach. That's going to happen. Irsay is going to fire him. Yes. Andrew Luck will be back to 100% next year. I think that'd be a fantastic landing spot for Sean Payton. I don't know if Tom Benson's going to pay that buyout. Right. It's going to have to be Sean Payton going to another job there because they're not going to get rid of him. Yeah, I don't see it. I think they're really close. Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton, Dennis Lauscha, Tom Benson. That the 4 of them are extremely close. It's got to be Sean Payton going somewhere else. I don't think they fire Sean Payton.
Les?
I agree with that, and I think that would be the best case scenario for the Saints if you have someone else come in and offer Sean Payton a job and then get some compensation at the same time. If that were to play out, I think that would be the best case scenario because you're right, that's a very tightly knit group. They've had a lot of success together. I don't know if I can see Mickey firing Sean.
Right, I can't.
And I don't think I can see Mr. Benson firing Mickey.
Right.
But, I mean, if Mr. Benson decides that this, he wants another Super Bowl and he wants it soon, and he's convinced that they have to make a move, then I think he would have to do one of the most difficult things he's ever had to do in his career. And I just don't know if we're going to get to that point.
Look at Jerry Jones. He's getting up there in age. He's going all in. He's getting questionable guys in there, but they're winning. They have a shot at the Super Bowl this year. Mr. Benson's 90 years old. How much longer is he going to deal with losing? Right. Okay, he's got a losing franchise in basketball. His best success in the last 4 years has been with his horses. This might be one of his last shots. If he blows this thing up now, if he can stay around another 5-10 years, he can maybe see another Super Bowl. Because the way it's going right now, he's not going to see another Super Bowl with the Saints anytime soon.
And it's very frustrating for, again, the fans that, again, have bought in. But I think it's a different type of fan base now. I think they don't have the patience they did back in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
They're used to winning.
Okay?
They don't know.
No, they have no idea.
The old people don't know that.
Right.
The older people know the struggles. The young people just know winning.
Right.
And they want to win right now, and they're not used to the losing. And
Sure.
they're getting disinterested.
Right.
I got friends that are just dumping their season tickets to anybody who wants them. They don't want to go to the games anymore.
Right.
Waste their Sundays.
It's true. And again, now with the ability with the NFL Sunday ticket to go out and see any game you want, it's not like it was where, you had 2 games on and, whatever the home team was, and that was it.
Yeah.
And you were constricted to that. It's a different NFL now. It's a different sports fan. It's definitely a different New Orleans sports fan now that we're seeing. With the team itself right now, Stephon Anthony traded, number 1 pick in 2015, 31st pick. That pick came from the Seahawks in the Jimmy Graham Unger deal. And of course, he goes to Miami. Joe Vitt in Miami obviously had something to do with him going there. Of course, I heard he's on the injury list immediately because of the ankle. But, are you surprised they gave up on him, and should they have given up on him?
No, I'm not surprised they gave up on him. I was surprised he made the roster. When they come out in the off season and talk about the deficiencies he had mentally in playing the defense, that tells you that they'd run out of patience with him. And then he got hurt in the preseason at a position where they kept 3 linebackers who weren't on the roster last year. I was surprised he even made the roster under those circumstances. I don't think he was going to have an impact this year after being sidelined for as long as he was. I think the best thing that happened for them was that Miami had an injury. Timmons got hurt, and they needed to give up a 5th-round draft choice to get a replacement. So, for a guy who I don't think was going to do anything for them this year and probably wasn't going to be part of the future, they got a 5th-round draft choice. I think it worked out reasonably well for them.
It did. I'm amazed they got anything for Stephon Anthony. I think that's probably the reason they kept him on the roster, is to see if they can use him as trade bait, because he was inactive the first 2 games of the season. Another first rounder gone.
Yeah.
Another waste. These drafts have been a disaster for them.
Since Jeff Ireland has come to New Orleans, it's been better.
Yes.
The last 2 years, you can say, and look, drafts take a little while. We'll know about the 16 draft in another year or so. We'll know about the 17 draft in about 2 years or so, if all of these guys stick. But it's been horrendous. Look, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, on my radio show. Years ago, we were talking about the drafts, how bad they were. And of course, ultimately he had to make some front office moves. He's done that. Ireland looks like he's done a much better job. Kenny Vaccaro, now supposedly on the trading block. Multiple busts in the game against Minnesota that was pointed out by Tony Romo on the telecast last week. Also, you look at last week against the New England Patriots, another bust. Here's a guy that should know the defense inside and out. He's one of your leaders. But as I've said before on this show, on the radio show, they're not doing him any favors. He's a guy that should be rushing the pass. He should be close to the line in run support. They got him covering tight ends and dropping back in the pass coverage, which is not his forte. A lot of talk about him possibly being traded. You think he'll be on this team by the trading deadline, or do you think that ultimately they'll move him as well?
I think there's a good chance they will move him. It sounds like they've lost patience with him, and I'm not sure that's totally fair. I like Kenny Vaccaro. I think he's a stand-up guy. I think when things don't go well, he stands up there and he'll talk about it. He'll take blame for his mistakes. I don't think he's had a year as good as his rookie year since his rookie year. And part of that is what you alluded to. They don't seem to know how to best utilize his talents, and he's a very talented player. But it just doesn't seem like they've been able to figure out how to maximize his skills within the defense for about 4 years now. And so they feel like they have pretty good depth at safety. I think a lot of that's unproven at this point, but obviously if they aren't initiating talks, they're certainly all ears to people who are calling. And if somebody gets an injury, just like the Dolphins had at linebacker, and they get a decent offer, I think you could easily see another first-round draft choice get moved out of here.
I think he's gone because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. They need to get something for him. I just think they haven't gotten the deal yet. That's the only reason Vaccaro's on the team right now. I think they haven't found the deal yet, waiting on injuries from other teams. If they find a team that's lost the safety, he's gone. I just think they need to get something back for him.
Garland, as you break down the film and look at it again, I look at it, I don't see any inside pass rush at all.
The Nick Fairley injury, we talked about the off-season conditioning. That's one you just didn't, you couldn't get ready for. You did not know that was going to happen there. that hurts. I know we forgot about it. I mean, when you're gone, you're gone. Everybody forgets about you. But Nick Fairley was huge inside. Him and Sheldon Rankins were gonna be formidable inside. That's another killer there. You're right. They're not getting the defensive.
Yeah. They are getting the outside push, but again, they're being fanned out. Jordan and Kakaha or whoever it's going to be that's going on the outside pass rush, they're at least they're about a step off, but the quarterback is unabated, just stepping up, and there's no inside pressure, no one in their face.
No, there isn't. And, one guy we saw in the preseason and training camp who looked good was Sheldon Rankins. I think we all thought with the injury, it was a good pick at the time. He was hurt a lot last year. He looked good. And I think there was an expectation that he was going to be an impact player this year. First 2 games, he has not been that. Maybe he will be going forward. But they have to get some better play on the interior of the defensive line if they're going to have a chance.
No doubt.
And we haven't seen it so far. And the loss of Nick Fairley, like you said, that's something you didn't see coming, and it was one of probably the 3 or 4 players they could least afford to lose going into this season.
Yeah.
We talk about the defense. I mean, the offense only did score 20 points on Sunday.
No.
I mean, that's on Breeze-like for that offense, for them to only score 20 points.
But isn't that a lot to do with the wide receivers right now?
Yes.
And then maybe
Willie's that hurt. That hurt.
But I tell you, he will get paid now, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, where they were maybe kind of hemming and hawing on paying him, he'll get paid now because you see his loss. And then I don't think that Peyton has figured out how to use his running backs yet. I mean, here it is again. Again, get away from the running game, but trying to appease Adrian Peterson, trying to appease Mark Ingram at this point. I mean, you got to figure out what you're going to do. Mark Ingram's at least in my mind, the number 1 back on this team. Run the guy, and if Peterson come in and spot duty, he can, because I don't think that Peterson will work. I never understood bringing him in, to be honest with you. I don't, unless there's an injury, because Peterson he's a high-volume back that needs carries to be effective. I think he's lost a step. I don't think he's the same guy. But still, we won't know that unless he gets 20 carries a game.
Well, a lot of things have worked against the offense so far. Playing from behind, double-digit deficits the entire second half of both games. And I talked to Kobe Fleener about this yesterday, and he said, we're as much to blame for that as the defense. You can't have 3 and outs. You can't get in the red zone and not get touchdowns. There are a lot of reasons for those deficits that can't be blamed on the defense, even though they're primarily responsible. And so the running game goes away when you're that far behind. I think you're right. Peyton hasn't figured out how to blend in those 3 guys. I think the odd man out is going to be Adrian Peterson. I don't really see a role for him at this point.
Unless there's an injury, right?
Yeah, I mean, Alvin Kamara is going to be one of your guys going forward, and so is Ingram.
Yeah. I
mean, if this starts keep going downhill, I mean, somebody's going to want Adrian Peterson, right? There's going to be a running back that's going to get hurt in the NFL in the next few weeks. Maybe they give a phone call to him.
Well, maybe so. At this point, can't convert on 3rd down on offense, can't get off the field on 3rd down on defense.
Yeah, those numbers are terrible.
Horrible.
And if you look at it, I believe last week the average 3rd down was 8 yards to go for the offense. It was about 6.5 the week before that. I mean, even Drew Brees is not going to be really successful when you're facing 3rd and long most of the time. Plus, you're missing both of your starting tackles, plus your number 2 receiver. It just makes it almost impossible for the offense to put up 28 to 31 points a game, which they have to do to have a chance. And then the defense, they've given up so many big plays. That's probably the worst part of the 3rd down stats is the 3rd down conversion ratio is like 58% or something like that, which is terrible. But they're also giving up big plays where they don't even get to 3rd down before they get into trouble. So it's just there are so many things wrong or that have gone wrong these first 2 weeks that in 60 minutes we don't have enough time to cover them all.
Which leads me really to my next question, Garland. Can they turn this around? Everybody was looking to try to get, maybe have 500 or maybe at least 1 win going into the first quarter of the season. It's still possible. The injuries have taken its toll even before they obviously kicked the ball off against Minnesota. When you look at the back end of the schedule, it looks favorable, but I mean, who knows what type of team this will be by then. Do you think that this is an opportunity they can turn this thing around? They can be an 8-8 team, a team that maybe contends for a wild card spot, or are we destined to see this up and down all season long?
I think the NFC South is too strong. You saw what the Atlanta Falcons did to Green Bay on Sunday night. The Saints are looking to possibly go 0-2 against the Falcons. I watched Hard Knocks this summer with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Who's stopping Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson on that team? None of them.
Nobody.
No one can stop him from the Falcons.
Right.
What are they going to go 1-3 against the Bucks and Falcons? Panthers, they probably might split with them. That's not going to be good enough there. They can go 2-4 in the NFC South. I just think 8-8 is realistic for them. I just think they missed the playoffs.
That's the high watermark in your opinion.
That's what I thought they were going to go.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but that's what I had them at 8-8 going into the season. That's what I thought. I wasn't buying. Some people had 11-5, 10-6.
Oh.
I thought that was way.
I'd like to stick my head under the desk for saying 10-6.
Yeah, I will say this. I was pretty high on the Tigers, which we might talk about later.
Yeah.
So I was wrong on that one. I'm not going to say I'm right on the Saints yet. We got a lot of time left, but I'd say they go 8-8. And Drew Brees, you will not see with New Orleans Saints next year. He'll be gone. Either two, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are his front runner because I think Ben Roethlisberger. This is going to be the last year for Ben. I mean, he had to get coaxed to come back. That offense is unreal. Either there, the Cardinals, Carson Palmer's probably in the last year of his contract. That defense is unreal.
Yes.
And the Broncos, Trevor Siemian threw 4 touchdown passes this week. Still a lot of football left. Those are the 3 places I think he goes. A lot of people have been saying Texans with me. I think Deshaun and Watson, they're not going to give up on Deshaun that quickly. But they already can give up on Paxton Lynch. Trevor Siemian, 4 touchdowns. That's 1 game against the Cowboys. But I think he's at one of those 3 teams next year.
Your thoughts?
Well, I think all of those make sense. Indianapolis for Sean Payton also makes sense. But as far as Drew, I don't know where Drew's going to go. All of those make sense.
How about turning it around the season? Is it possible? I mean, is it likely at this point after what you've seen?
It's possible. It's extremely unlikely unless we see dramatic improvement. These next 2 games before they go into the open date are huge. Not only do they need to win at least 1, probably 2, but they just have to look better. They look like a bad football team. And if they don't start looking like a team that's competitive and is getting better over these next 2 weeks, I think they could go into a free fall. So as important as wins are right now, I think these next 2 weeks, they have to look like a team that's figuring things out. They have not looked like that the first 2 weeks. That Carolina defense is going to make it really hard.
You better believe
Drew Brees with backup tackles going against that Carolina defense, that's going to be extremely difficult. Now, this is not a big play offense. Carolina is probably not going to.
They haven't looked good. They haven't looked good in the first 2 weeks.
Cam has struggled. He's like in preseason form right now.
But I think they're going to run the ball, and I think they're going to run the ball effectively. So it may not be as high scoring as the last 2, but I think it's going to be an extremely physical, run between the tackles type game, and Carolina is going to make it really hard for Drew Brees. And if they can somehow win this game or at least look good, better than they have the first 2 weeks, that gives you a glimmer of hope. But I don't see much reason for that going into this game.
You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Garland Gillen of Fox 8 Sports, and also Les East of CrescentCitySports.com. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back. We'll talk a little LSU. We'll get into some Tulane. We'll open up the phone line so we can get your opinions on what's going on with the home teams. Don't go anywhere.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or amcofencecompany.com.
TikTok Cafe, located on Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our menu offers breakfast dishes like our Western omelet made from scratch biscuits, grits, egg sunny side up, and lunch specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special, and that every Tuesday is steak night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Garland, Gillen, and Les East are our guests tonight. We're going to talk a little Tulane football right now. Tulane loses to Oklahoma 56-14, but look, don't be discouraged by the score. Tulane was right in this game in the first half. I thought it was an admirable effort by the Green Wave with a backup quarterback. It looks as though Jonathan Banks will be back against Army this week. You know, we know that Oklahoma squeezed in between the two service academies. I think they should have beaten Navy. Self-inflicted wounds hurt them there. And I think they got a real good shot of coming out and having a great performance and beating Army this week at home with 11 o'clock start at Yeoman. I'll start with you, Garland. Your thoughts on the Green Wave?
Yeah, if Jonathan Banks is the starting quarterback on Saturday, I think they have a fantastic shot to win this game. Vegas likes them in this game. If they want to get to a bowl game, to get those 6 wins, they have to win on Saturday. They lose on Saturday, they might not make a bowl this year. A 1-3, that's a killer. They got to win on Saturday against Army, and I think they will, because I think Jonathan Banks, what we saw from him so far, looked really good in the Grambling game. I know they're an FCS team. He looked good against Navy until he got injured. Last week was smart to keep him out against OU. They were losing that game no matter what. I think this week, I think they're going to win this week against Army. Army's defense is not that strong, and I think Teron Ankala has been looking really good when Jonathan Banks is throwing the ball to them.
I agree. I think they have a good chance to win this week. I do think Jonathan Banks is going to play. Army has completed 4 passes this season, so they're a pretty limited offense.
Right. And
Tulane played basically the same type of scheme against Navy 2 weeks ago, even though they couldn't pull off the win at the end. Overall, they defended the run pretty well in that game, and I think they should have confidence coming out of the Oklahoma game. You know, Willie Fritz said, he asked his players before the game, what's the biggest, most intimidating venue y'all have ever played in? And they said Rutgers.
Rutgers, yeah.
You know, Rutgers to Oklahoma is still a huge leap.
Yes.
So that was totally foreign to them. They went in there. They not only took the quick lead, Oklahoma came right back like you knew they would and tied it. Tulane went down and scored again. That showed me a lot, that they were able to come back. And it was very competitive, really, for the first half into the third quarter. So I think they should come out of that very confident. And if they're beat up at all from playing a bigger team, Army's coming off a game at Ohio State, so I don't think that's going to hurt them either.
And I thought one thing that Coach Fritz did last week, when he realized it was out of reach, he put a lot of young players in. He saved a lot of the guys he was going to need for conference play, wouldn't let them get injured against maybe a physical Oklahoma team, and got some guys some real playing time that, again, that will pay off dividends later down the line of the season and beyond.
Yeah, Willie Fritz is in this for the long haul. This might be one of his last coaching jobs. I think he's been recruiting very well. Getting Jonathan Banks was a huge pickup for him. I like the offense. I think they're going places with Willie. They got to be better than CJ on the back end. So I'm excited. I mean, I'm covering the game on Saturday. I'm going to be there, so I'm excited. The game's on national television. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a good atmosphere. It might be pretty steamy at 11 a.m., which actually might work out for Tulane there. They're used to this humidity. They've been practicing they practice every day from 8:30 to 11 o'clock. So they've been in this weather every single day. Right. So I think that's going to work to their advantage on Saturday.
Comes down to being disciplined on defense. I mean, anytime you're dealing with a service academy, you know the type of offense they run. If they can stay disciplined, and the fact that they played Navy 2 weeks ago, there's got to be some lingering effects of that as well.
Yeah, I think so. And also, you know, Navy early in the game burned them with a couple of passes, and so which Navy can do. If you get so caught up in that triple option, you can get burned on the pass. But Army so far has not shown the ability to do that. And so I think the fact that Tulane stood up pretty well against that triple option, if they can do something similar against Army, then I think Army's less likely to make them pay for it with the pass. So I think their defense will do pretty well. It's a defense that's played well so far this season. And if Banks is able to go the whole game, and we think he will start, I think they can probably make enough plays on offense to win. And you're right, if they're going to be a bowl team, they absolutely have to get this win.
Totally agree with both you guys. Meanwhile, 90 miles upriver, Mississippi State gave a lashing down in Starkville to LSU, 37-7. Yeah, it was as bad as the score indicated. You know, all off-season long, I think we wondered about the first 2 games of the season. Was it going to be Cupcake U? We didn't know what BYU was going to be. And then of course, when you looked at Chattanooga, you knew that was going to be a win. But you wondered about the offensive line, the defensive line, how they would be able to deal with again, stepping up in class and dealing with SEC-type lines. And they didn't pass the test at all. Defensively, when you look at it, obviously some injuries, guys that got either taken out of the game for targeting. I mean, there were some issues there along the defensive line. But offensively, they just got taken to the woodshed by the Mississippi State defense. And it makes you wonder, Ben, about the rest of the season. They've lost a lot of players in the offseason, not just to the NFL, but guys that they expected to come back to be on that offensive line. Now all of a sudden you got a lot of young players, guys that may have not been playing. If a lot of the so-called starters would have stayed at LSU, it's going to be interesting to see again how they rebound, not that this week and next week against Syracuse and Troy, but looking forward to that gauntlet starting at Florida, you know, where again, it's week after week of SEC teams with most of them on the road.
Well, I think those are the biggest concerns right now with LSU is a lack of experience and depth on both lines. And they got, I tweeted this during the game, I've seen LSU and Mississippi State play a lot of football games. LSU's played Mississippi State more than they played any other school ever. And this is the biggest margin of defeat ever for LSU, and I've never seen a state team take it to LSU the way they did on both sides of the ball. And that next SEC game is going to be just as physical. It's going to be just as hostile in the Swamp in Gainesville. And there's a lot of animosity between those two teams based on what happened with rescheduling the game last year. Rightly or wrongly, there's a lot of bitterness there, and that's going to be a huge test. And I don't know how much you can do. I mean, getting Rashard Lawrence healthy would be great.
Sure.
But other
getting
than
Herron
that,
back would help as well.
Yeah. But other than that, there's not a whole lot you can do about the lack of depth or experience on the lines other than line up and play. And these next 2 games, they should be able to win fairly easily. But I think that's a good opportunity to look at some younger players. And, you know, I think we're going to see a lot of Miles Brennan going off on a tangent here these next 2 weeks.
Right. And I want to get into that in a moment. Herron out, ineligible right now. The Hogue kind of let the cat out the bag on his radio show this week. He's expected to be back in a couple weeks. You had Alexander got hurt his hand during the game. Shelvin didn't qualify. He was thought to be a guy that was going to be a big part of this team. Okay. Farrell gets ejected for the targeting. I mean, between the ejections and the injuries, the defensive line was obviously hurting. I think they can get better on the defensive line. I wonder how much better they can get on the offensive line, Garland, with what they have to work with. Yeah,
Darius Geis, he's not going to play this week, which is smart. Just save the Florida game is just all that matters right now. Just getting everybody healthy, getting them ready. We talked about Brennan. I'm really excited to see what he's got. I covered him in high school there. He's an hour away at Bay St. Louis. We know what Danny Etling has. I say Etling plays 1 quarter, quarter and a half. Let's throw Miles Brennan out there and see what he can do. He would have thrown a touchdown pass against Chattanooga if Stephen Sullivan didn't drop it.
Sure.
He only threw 1 pass against Brigham Young. Danny Etling's gone after this year. If they're going to plan for the future, and obviously if they lose at Florida, the season, there's only one goal: win a national title. And if that's over with, you maybe could still win the SEC, but losing 2 times is probably over with too. Might as well throw Miles Brennan out there after the Swamp, but he's probably going to play a lot before then.
Right. I want you to piggyback on that because that was a big cat call from on social media from the fans this week. They want to see Narcisse. They want to see Miles Brennan. Do you want to see Narcisse and Miles Brennan behind that offensive line in an SEC venue and maybe, again, hurt those guys' psyche going forward? I understand against Syracuse and Troy, getting those guys as much playing time as you're going to get. If you're ultimately going to redshirt Narcisse, you redshirt him, maybe get Brennan the playing time here. But do you really want to take a chance on throwing Brennan out there, as you have to go to Alabama, as you go to Florida? That's one of the big questions going forward.
Well, that's something they need to try and sort out these next 2 weeks. I wrote about this Saturday Down South. First of all, Orgeron absolutely made the right decision by not sticking Brennan into that game in Starkville. That thing was totally out of control. There was nothing Miles Brennan or anybody else could have done to salvage that game. So you're better off not destroying his confidence. Now, these two games, you can put him in there at home, non-conference games, get him a lot of playing time, and see what he's up to, so you have a better gauge of how he can handle the adversity in Florida and other places down the road. If he doesn't look like he's up to it, then you know, hey, we got to stick with Danny Etling the rest of the way. But maybe he shows you something that says, hey, we need to spot him in some SEC games and accelerate his development for next year. You know, one of the problems with Danny Etling is Orgeron said this on Monday, that talked about decisions at the line of scrimmage. I was told there were 5 plays where Etling gave the ball to the wrong player. Okay, reading the speed sweep. He's given the ball to the wrong player. I mean, if you're playing a 5th-year senior over a true freshman,
got to know that.
You should not be making mental mistakes like that. So that's a concern going forward, is the decision-making, no matter who the quarterback is.
Well, let's face it, the reason he's at LSU is he got beat out at Purdue, okay? And Purdue is not one of the Big Ten heavyweights. So first off, Etling wasn't a top-notch quarterback to start with. Miles Brennan's accuracy, it was fantastic in high school at Stanislaus. I think his accuracy has gotten better since he's been with LSU. I mean, he started in early June. Lowell Narcisse got to go through spring drills, and Miles Brennan blew right past them, blew through Justin McMillan. Lindsey Scott is now at East Mississippi Community College. Roll him out there. I also say let Lowell Narcisse play this year. You know why? Because in the world of FBS football now, one of these guys is going to transfer. It's either going to be Lowell or Miles. So Miles will burn their red shirts, let them play, because both of them aren't going to be there in 4 years from now. So Miles will burn them all. And what you see in recruiting, Justin Phillips, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Now, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt because I've interviewed a ton of high school kids that give me top 3s, top 5s, top 10s. But right now, he's saying Georgia and LSU are his top 2. And Georgia right now has 2 of the most promising quarterbacks in the SEC, in Jacob Eason and Jake Fromm. If you want to play right away, I think that's why he's thinking about LSU. Because all he has to beat out is Miles Brennan. Miles Brennan's good, but Phillips is one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and he's mobile. Miles is a good quarterback, but he's not mobile. I think Lowell Narcisse has the accuracy. I've sat through a 4 or 5 of his practices at St. James over the years. He doesn't have accuracy. He's fast as lightning. He doesn't have accuracy, but I say you play Lowell Narcisse and you play Miles Brennan the next 2 weeks, because neither one might be there all 4 years, but not both of them.
Guys, Coach O got lambasted on social media. Those that didn't want the hire, they came out of the woodwork calling for his head. It's a $12 million buyout. He's not going anywhere. As I said before, it's 1,000 days of Coach O. Get used to it, figure it out. Maybe if you get to the 2nd year, there might be a chance. If he's not successful, at that point they may go in another direction. But Coach O's here for at least the next 2 years. But again, he's done exactly what he said he's going to do. He hired the best coaches in America, especially as coordinators, in Aranda and Canada. He's been the CEO. He's been the recruiter. Now, maybe he should have been a little bit more maybe engaged. He had that little deer in the headlights look on the sidelines at times against Mississippi State. But you can't have it both ways. If you're going to sit there and you're going to throw accolades at the coordinators, and you're hoping Coach O stays out of the game plan on game day, well, then when you have a performance like you had against Mississippi State, hey, you got to hold those coordinators accountable for what happened, because those are the guys that are calling the shots. Those are the guys that are setting the game plan, and those are the guys that are making the adjustments on the fly.
Absolutely. And when you have a one-game meltdown like that, and we're at this point assuming it's only one game, you're right. It's the coordinators and, to a lesser extent, the position coaches. I mean, I don't know what else Ed Orgeron could have done. That's probably the worst I've seen a Dave Aranda defense look since he's been there. Matt Canada is still, I mean, it's only his 3rd game. There's a big adjustment period going on there. So I'm not worried about either of those 2 coaches. They know what they're doing. But for that one night, if you want to pin the blame on somebody other than players, those are the 2 guys you go after first. Ed Orgeron's success or failure at LSU is going to depend on his ability to recruit, especially linemen on both sides of the ball and a quarterback over the next 2 or 3 years. That's it. He's either going to do the job recruiting and be a success, or not do the job recruiting and be a failure.
Who are they going to hire? You got to just LSU fans got to calm down. We got to hire Chip Kelly. There's no good names out there right now. There's no hot young coordinators that are gonna change the thing change at LSU right now. They got to ride Ogeron out for a little while. That's ludicrous. There's no. I mean, really, give me a good name.
Right.
I mean, who's out there that you're like, oh, we need to get. No one's saying we need to get Chip Kelly. Like, we need him. Bob Stoops isn't coming out of retirement, and I don't know if LSU fans wouldn't even want to deal with Bob Stoops. He had a lot of hate for the SEC over the years. There's no one out there that they can get right now. I would slow down.
And the buyout makes it prohibitive for them not to be able to do anything. You know, his salary might not be one of the highest in the SEC, but that buyout's high enough that he's got some job security. So again, he's done everything he's been asked to do at this point. Nobody's happy about getting blown out from Mississippi State, but again, the coordinators again, they have as Pate would say, their hands are a little dirty on this one as well. Let's head to the phone lines. 866-3200. Cole is in the lower 9. Cole, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Cole.
Hey, guys. I just want to say I was actually really disappointed about us trading Stephon Anthony. I mean, I know he's not a good mental player, but the dude's a physical specimen. I mean, his rookie year, he led us in tackles. That's crazy. And I think it really has a lot to do with our coaches, and why we are always failing lately is because we're always like, it's so egotistical of these coaches. They're like, we're going to do it only my way and everything like that. And yet we don't play to our players' strengths whatsoever. And we keep, cycling in this, mediocrity. And I think it's, it's intolerable. So I really think we should blow up the team also. And I think John Gruden or Harbaugh would be awesome. I know that's crazy to say, but it'd be fun to say. So that's all I have to say.
Well, I agree with you, Cole. I think they ruined Stephon Anthony. I think that you can't put a guy in at middle linebacker. He settles in there. You go with a different defensive scheme. You move him to the strong side linebacker, and all of a sudden he's lost. He has no idea what's going on there. He can't read the defense. Doesn't understand what's going on. And look. Joe Vitt I don't know a linebacker that Joe Vitt ever developed for this team going forward. So I put that as much on the coaching staff as I do for the evaluation of picking him 31st in the draft in 2015.
Yeah, he's a talented player. I liked what I saw from him as a rookie. And if their criticism of him, and they said this publicly, was that his mental effort at linebacker wasn't up to par, well, maybe that's because you never let him settle into one place and you kept moving him around. Maybe that's why there were mental mistakes.
Yeah, the moving him around different linebackers spot, it crushed his. I mean, at Clemson, he's still considered a leader at Clemson. He gave pep talks to the team. They won a national title. He was one of the people that came back and they loved him. I think that if they got him in a right situation, which he was in. The moves just killed him, and I will say the injuries too. Yeah. He was never healthy this preseason.
That's a very good point. And we'll go back in time here. I've said it before. He reminds me of Mark Fields. Fields couldn't get it here in New Orleans. A number 1 pick. They talked about him not being able to be able to figure out the defense. It was all mental between his ears, not physical. He goes to 2 other NFL teams, has a pretty darn good career after he figured out how to be an NFL player. I got a feeling Stephon Anthony's going to be the same type of guy. To Wallace in New Orleans. Wallace, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Wallace. Wallace going once. Wallace, you got to stay on the TV, my man. This is the 3rd week in a row you called and we can't get you on the air. To Carl and Slidell. Carl, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Carl.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple comments about LSU and the Saints. Briefly, LSU, they got Matt Canada. And he's averaging 42 points a game up there, but he's not going to do that at the Southeastern Conference. There's just no way. The offensive line is young. They went to Mississippi State, and they needed to see what it's like to be on the road in the Southeastern Conference. It ain't easy. I think they'll get it together. I think that Coach O's going to do real good. He's got to get a few good recruiting years behind him. And I think that they're going to do real good. But, looking at what they did, they not, Mississippi State took it to them. And, they're very young. So we're going to have a lot of that growing pains throughout this season, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right on, Carl. I think you're playing a lot of guys that had never been to Starkville before, had never been around those cowbells. I mean, and it could be a little bit intimidating. You got a lot of young players that had never stepped on an SEC field playing against SEC opponent. So I mean, I think it's a legitimate comment.
And it's only going to get worse. I mean, Florida, they need to pray. LSU need to pray that game's at nighttime, because that is a cauldron. I've covered an 11:30 game there. It was brutal in the press box there. The steam just holds into the stadium. I think that Florida could be even tougher. And I will say this: Florida's beatable. That offense is not good.
Yeah,
Felipe Franks is not a good quarterback. No. Their quarterback situation is pretty bad. Yeah. Bad defense by Tennessee. Tennessee's a bad team too.
They got lucky.
So that's the only reason I think LSU can be safe right now is that they're going to win the next 2 weeks, and Florida's not a good team. Right. Florida might lose at Kentucky this week. Kentucky's undefeated right now, huh?
Yep.
So we'll see.
Yep. Les?
Well, we'll learn a lot in Florida. You're right. That's not a great Florida team, so that's definitely a winnable game. But after the way they were handled at Starkville, and Carl brings up something we didn't really talk a lot about, and that was the offensive line and the pressure on Danny Etling, which was really bad. So they were so uncompetitive in that SEC opener. The jury's out until we see them play another SEC opponent, but Florida is beatable.
Final call of the show. Jerry, welcome to the show. Hey, Jerry.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great.
My question is, do the referees go into a game like the LSU game knowing how many penalties a team has already, and do they look at a team and watch a team to referee and see a penalty, or do they look at a team who has a lot of penalties looking for a penalty? I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
I think they do scout teams. The officials, they know the tendency of what a team does and doesn't do. I think it's discussed before the game, right?
I think they do. I believe that referees try and be fair, but I think subconsciously, if you've studied the teams and you've looked at the statistics, it could be in the back of your mind, and the benefit of the doubt may go for or against a team based on that. But for the most part, I don't think that they go into a game expecting to call it a certain way or favor one team or another.
No doubt. 30 seconds.
Yeah, and they came out, SEC came out this week that the rubber out was actually, that was the right call.
Right. Which I don't agree with, I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, the Patriots was more blatant against the Saints on Sunday. So that is a 50. I would do rubber outs all the time if I were a team, because they can't call it. They're going to call it every single play. Just keep doing it.
Right.
They're not going to call it every time. They're going to get away with it.
And then the Tom Brady 12-man on the field, the flag wasn't even thrown, and Brady gets them to throw the flag. Which, look, don't get me started on that.
It's good to be Tom Brady.
Yes, it is good to be Tom Brady. All the way around, right? It's good to be Tom Brady. It's always good to have you guys on the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Les, Easton, Garland, Gillen, always a great panel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program every Friday night right here on WLE at 10 p.m. Also, 9 p.m. statewide on Friday night on Pelican Sports Television. Catch us on the Cox cable tier, Cox 130. That's 10 o'clock on Thursdays and 2 a.m. on Saturday mornings. Catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO. That's weekdays, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. The TuneIn Radio app is a great way to take the show with you anywhere. And, of course, all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. Great show tonight, great guests, Garland Gillen of Fox 8 Sports, Les East of CrestCitySports.com, and so much more. And, of course, special thanks also to the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Kenny Juno, Trey Lopez, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.